good evening. Welcome to the show. This is The Couch. My name is Ama Pratt. This is the Wednesday book review edition of the show. And tonight we continue with this book, The Thin Around Your Neck, a series of short stories from Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, who I love, and love some more. So last week, we reviewed Cell 1. That's the first short story in this book. Today, we are reviewing Imitation. That's the second short story of this book. And I'm excited. The themes are exciting. Let me not waste time. Let me quickly introduce my fellow conversationist for today's show. Before that, though, let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
When I was growing up, I read a lot of Russian books and I got it. You know, I didn't always understand what the little details were, but the emotion of it, I think, is something that's universal. It cuts across, you know, gender, class, race, lines, and you get it. Right? But I think that's what literature does, though, that we, you know, we draw meaning. And often it doesn't have to be the same. You know, what does it mean? I don't know. Maybe it means the sense of, I don't know, the sense of alienation that we sometimes have, that can often come from leaving home, going to a new place, and finding that there is no home, really. What I think is that I've always felt, and I think this is less about leaving home and more about being a storyteller. I have always, for as long as I can remember, felt one step removed from things, because I've always felt that I'm watching. So even when I was a child and we had family events, I was watching. I wasn't entirely there. There was the sort of part of me that was milking things for detail, for a story. And I continue to feel that way. When I'm back home in Nigeria, I'm doing things, but I'm never entirely there. And I think it's the lot of the writer. There's a story called The Shivering, which is special to me, and I don't know if that's because it's the most recent of the stories, and it's the story that's completely new. It hasn't been published anywhere else. And the story called Ghosts is special to me because it's about it isn't, the details aren't necessarily about my father, but the emotion of it. It's a love story. It's a love letter to my father. It's about my parents' love story. It's about my father's just beautiful, gentle nature. And it's about this town that I love, the town where I grew up, Nsukka. And all of these things come together for me in the story, and it's very special to me. The stories in this book, in this collection, are actually mostly old stories. So I was writing stories when I was writing the novels. But for me, the short story form is just as important and as interesting as the novel. And as a reader as well. I mean, I read short stories. And sometimes people talk about the short story as though somehow the short story is the less accomplished sibling of the novel. This is the thing about talking about writing, that the assumption behind conversations about writing is that writing is an entirely conscious process or a mostly conscious process, and it isn't for me. And that somehow the choices one makes as a writer are deliberate choices, and they usually aren't deliberate choices. It's that the spirits speak to me. It's that, I'm sitting there, and when it's going well, I'm on a high. It's this glorious thing that's happening. Sometimes a story calls me, something happens, and I know it's going to be a short story. And something else happens, and I just know it's going to somehow be part of a novel. And I can't entirely even justify. I didn't write them thinking of a collection. I just wrote them, and they were published in magazines and journals. And now that I decided that it was time to do a collection, I had to decide which stories would go in the book. And I wasn't really thinking about theme. I never think about my work in terms of theme. I think it's there's the creative way of thinking, and then there's a sort of critical way of thinking. I try to avoid being the critic. There are many critics in the world, and they need jobs, so I'll let them do their job. And so I looked at the stories, and I thought, which stories do I care about in a visceral way? Which do I really care about? Which do I think are strong? I mean, a lot of the stories mean very much to me in an emotional way. And also, I don't write about myself mostly because, I'm in addition to having a life that's too boring, I'm too keen on self-preservation. So if I wrote about myself, I would be dishonest. But the stories are about people. I mean, a lot of the stories are based on things that actually happened or are happening or can happen. I mean, my hope is that the reader will find a way to connect, I guess. In the end, that's the ultimate hope, that a reader finds a way to connect.
Welcome back to the show. Let me quickly introduce my favorite people. Hi, Mims.
Yeah, you're always quite in trouble. Hi.
Why?
How are you?
How am I quite in trouble?
I said some of your
Oh, okay. Let me introduce some of my favorite people. I mean, Bless knows that he can only be some of my favorite people. He can't be the entirety of all of my favorite people. I mean...
If
great
he
to
is part
see
of
you.
the favorite people,
Exactly, that is.
Great to see you too. You're looking good. Love your
Thank
shirt.
you. Oh, thank you. Shelley Graham Dubois.
I always say, you and Petra, if ever I come to your house, you know where I'm going straight to your house, because I need to sample stuff.
I know, right?
It's really good.
I know, right? But this I got from the Nkrumah School.
Nkrumah School.
Nkrumah School. We run the socialist movement of
Oh,
Ghana
right.
runs.
It's beautiful.
Nkrumah. So
Maybe
this
next
is
time you should get one for all of us.
I should. I really should. It's great to see you looking
Great
fabulous
to see
as always.
You too.
Fabulous.
Second
as
time
always.
in a row. Doing well.
Yeah. Let's clap for Mimi. Hi, Bless.
Hello, Mama.
It's great to see you, Bless.
It's my second appearance on the show, and I'm loving it. If you ask me,
You are. Oh, we are loving that you're loving it.
Hey.
We are loving
He's
that
wearing
you're
a
loving
beautiful
it.
shirt as well.
Hey, Mims, you keep the.
You know, the one thing I love
compliments
about Pan-African is the fact that every time I come here, so as you know, I love wearing print.
Yes.
But every time I come here, you guys do not make me feel like I'm the loan. I love how you're always wearing. You all
Repping
should,
the
you should
print.
keep it up.
So those would be like a hint moments for ATL fabrics. Like a
Yes.
hint moments for ATL
ATL.
fabrics.
They should keep them coming.
Like
Yes.
hints. All right. Okay. So, Mims, I'll start with you today. Imitation. Imitation. What do you make of the story? In other words, give us a summary.
It's a very interesting story. I hate the ending. Hate the ending. But it's essentially about a young woman who has been, I don't want to say if she's been just bundled away by her husband to go and live in the US after their first child. And some Kokonsa person comes to tell her that her husband is having an affair. And she goes through a series of what's it called? When you analyze yourself, what's the phrase?
I know
going
what you
through,
mean.
trying to figure out why is it that she's in the states that she's in? What has she contributed to this? And just going through a self-reflection of how the marriage has been so far, and also an acceptance of the fact that her husband actually has somebody else. So essentially, this story is just about her journey towards knowing that the husband has somebody else, accepting the fact that her husband has somebody else, and making peace or trying to change the narrative if it is possible. And along the line, also find her voice. I don't like the ending because very common with Chimamanda. She always leaves us hanging, and you need to. I don't know whether she's trying to let you end the story yourself by putting in your own, because the ending, the possibilities for the ending is numerous.
Endless.
Yeah.
And it's literally and figuratively. You know how sometimes, but even literally, I wonder what she means at the end.
When she says this is the end or
Literally,
something like that,
I'm
I'm
just
like,
like,
okay, what does that
what
mean?
does that mean?
Yeah.
Like literally, even in terms of the grammar of it, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, so what do you mean by this word?
Yeah. Because you can't tell if it means she's now found her voice and she's now going to be more independent and more not just a trophy wife, or this is the end of the marriage, or this is the end of her being, behind the mask, or this is the end of her husband being who he is and being more, like, it's plenty
questions.
Yeah, plenty of questions. And I guess it's up to the reader to define for yourself how you want the ending of the story to be for you.
Right. Beautiful. Let's talk about the title, Imitation. Bless.
Imitation. I mean,
you think it's
so the title actually gives me fond memories of my days in senior high school. There was this particular book I studied as part of my literature course back in senior high school, The Blinkards by Kobina
Sechi.
Yes, so Kobina Sechi's Blinkards talks about something similar. The fact that you'd want to be living the life, the American dream or the European dream, where you are not in the confines of what I would say the African body, but you leave it to live another life and all that comes with it. So Imitation, the title, that is a picture that for me, for one, it paints to me, trying to live another life, another self. That is what, for me, Chimamanda portrays in this particular book.
Let's stay on the title a little bit. It's because it's very important to me. I know that she's deliberate about her titles, and I'm always trying to find the hidden meaning here. So on a literal level, I saw it as, you know how she kept referencing all of these artifacts, the artworks that were stolen from the continent, taken to Europe, and the fact that a lot of us now own what are imitations. As Africans, we own the imitations. And then our colonial masters own the actual artifacts that is so meaningful, the original
She even
copies.
mentioned that at a point in time, even the head of state actually even presented the artifact to the queen as a present.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But also beyond that, for me, is the fact that, is it possible she's looking at Nkem's life as an imitation of sorts? Because Nkem is always reflecting how this is not the life
she wanted to live,
she envisaged growing up. Like, this is not the life she ever thought was possible for her. Either she likes it or she doesn't like it. Whichever way, it's not the life she wants.
Yeah.
I mean, she's not living on a region now, like they say. So she's just living behind the mask. And for me, I think Chimamanda was just using those Benin masks as a representation of what Nkem was going through. So right from the beginning, you see how she's not herself when she's speaking to the husband. She's always behind the mask. So trying to please the husband, wears her hair longer because the husband likes it. When the husband is about to come, goes to do that thing that you guys do. That's
bikini wax.
Good to do the
At
wax.
least
The
a-
way,
It's actually my favorite line.
the way the
At least
husband.
London.
It's actually
A
my favorite
small
line in the
London.
book. The fact
The
that
way-
she waxed it for there to be that thing, like
Yeah.
just like the way Obiora likes
Yes.
it.
So everything about her is
Yeah.
not about her as much as it is about her husband. So she's living behind the mask. She's not her true self in the marriage. She doesn't have a voice because she intentionally chooses not to have a voice in order for the husband to be the big man that he is. So she's just essentially not herself. She's behind the mask and she's imitating what she feels is what she thinks the husband wants, who a good wife, in her husband's opinion, should be, not necessarily who she thinks she should be. So for me, I see a lot of linkages between, and it's interesting that at every point in the story where you see a shift, Chimamanda will put in the story about the mask.
Right.
Yeah.
So you see the mask is just appearing every time when she is aware of the fact that her husband is having an affair, she talks about it. When she begins self-accepting and starts debating with herself, Chimamanda also puts in the story about the president who went to dash away the original, getting to the end where she decides to cut her hair, look like, you see that story. So there's truly a linkage between the mask imitation and Nkem's life.
Absolutely. Now let's talk themes.
Yeah.
Let's start us off. What's your theme from this short
The
story?
American dream.
The American dream. Let's talk about that.
The American dream.
Right.
So, we had a story about how they both met, how Nkem met Obiora. The fact that she didn't even, in her wildest imagination, thought that a woman of her caliber was going to, or a man of that stature was going to fall in love with somebody like her. From the day, he met her and then called her Mermaid Eyes.
Oh, mermaid eyes. Mermaid
I mean,
eyes.
so even
Mermaid eyes.
yeah, and reading from that, she didn't actually even think that relationship was going to progress. But she said that the man still stayed. He didn't want to leave her and all of that. And then eventually, she had to travel overseas and then go and have a baby. Like a good percentage of the rich people in Africa like to do. Once their wives are pregnant, boom, they fly them overseas to go have kids there. So she went there and then to have her first child and then the second, and then she realized that the life there was very, very entirely different from what was being lived in Nigeria. Despite the fact that it was strange, she actually talked about the fact that she also wished her children did some of the things that these Adichie kids all do. You understand? So, she didn't like it. That wasn't her space. But then, of course, I wish my children also would smell food and say, I don't like this is bad. When down in Africa, Charlie, the kid just, you just want to have the food in your hand and then eat it. You understand? So, she was basically living the American dream, despite the fact that she was, that wasn't her space. She wasn't enthused about it. She was living in a marriage where she literally had no power at all. She had to succumb to the pressures, the wishes of Obiora, her husband. She was literally like a trophy wife. Just there and then. Whatever decision the man took was fine by her. She did things to actually please the man, like leaving the hair and then having to go add whatever texture and then put it at the back of her shoulders, just like the way Obiora liked it. The whole waxing and the line, the thin line, my favorite line in the poem actually, in the book actually, and all of that. So whatever she did.
Very curious. We'll have a conversation about that later, but go on.
Right. So basically, yes, she loved the American life, but it wasn't her. Like clearly you could see that this wasn't her space. She wasn't excited, but I mean, like, I'm living in America and all of that. Yeah. So.
Let it go. I have a question about that. So here's my question. You know how for her, the concept of a child smelling food and saying I don't like it, she had associated that with America.
Yeah.
And I know children right here in Ghana who smell food and say I don't like it. My question is, and I don't even know how to frame the question properly. Let me turn it around. So, given somebody's social status in Ghana, the person could travel outside and associate something with that space and get it wrong. It's not about America. It's about you and your circumstance. I don't know if I'm making sense. There are people locally in Ghana who experience the things that she's associating with America.
With America.
There are people locally in Nigeria who experience the kind of lifestyle that she's associating with America. So she's looking at the American dream, you know, and it could be the Nigerian dream. I don't know if I'm making sense. So let me make a classic example. Somebody who lives in some random village somewhere, travels to America and sees, and goes to a mall, you know, and thinks that, wow, in this space, look at the kind. But if the person had traveled to Accra, the person would have seen a mall. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah. I think for them, what's it called, for Nkem and even for Biora, because really, Nkem being in the US was not for her experience of the American dream as much as it was for Obiora's experience of the American dream. Because she and the kids being there was feeding Obiora's ego, and he wanted
absolutely
as a big man. So I have arrived at this point, this level of social status that I've gotten to. My wife is supposed to live in the US. My children are supposed to be here. They're supposed to experience some of the cultures in America. They're supposed to live in suburban culture, suburban houses, to feed his own ego. It had nothing to do with the Kem experience. I think the only thing a Kem experiences, in my estimation, of the American dream is the fact that there was not that clash or that strict levels of class. Because she had become, the lines had blurred so much that her housekeeper was her friend.
Yeah.
You don't do that in Nigeria. It is very clear. Oga's wife, you are
Madam,
the house help. You call him. You don't come and ask, have conversations with your boss's wife. As opposed to when they are there, she sees that communal, you know, everybody, egalitarian kind of thing where everybody is everybody. We don't really see clear distinctions between classes and who is a servant and who is not. And that is her, because you can even tell that she has an issue with the fact that her children are picking up some of these things. And she cannot even see herself as some of the Caucasian women or the American women. She doesn't identify. So her being there is just feeding somebody else's ego of, you know, this is my taste of what America should be like. So that would be my thought.
But I'm sorry that I'm still here, you know, on the American dream, because for me it's so important. I think that oftentimes that dream can be a mirage. Yeah. It can be a mirage.
I mean, I think it's even a mirage for even the Americans themselves.
It's
because there are some what's it called? Most black people, for instance, don't read the American dream, especially in this last couple of years where we had all these police brutalities that were happening, and all these what's it called, work situations for black people that was not really healthy. Black people especially, and not just black people really. Now you have people in the minorities speaking about how the American dream is not what was sold to them, and it is just the white people who possibly really understand what the American dream is. But then it's also how do I put this? The dream is the dream. It's for everybody in every continent. Find your own dream. Yeah. Because the definition of American dream, I honestly feel like, and maybe I'm getting this wrong, but I always feel like whenever we talk about the American dream, we are talking about the American dream for white people, not necessarily for black people. But that has always been my thoughts, because when you see the struggles that black people have had to go through to even get to where they are. To now have the first black person in this, the first black person in this area or in that area. The American dream was not really planned for the black person. That's my estimation. I feel like all of that thing was towards a conscious white person and not for a black person. So you need to find your own dreams in every culture that you've carved a little bit of dream for yourself. That this is what I also want as a person in this particular area or in this particular social setting that I'm in. So you don't get disappointed. Because
Absolutely.
if not, you feel like
You'll be chasing a mirage that is not
that is
yours.
not there. Yeah.
Let me read something here.
Actually,
Sorry, please go ahead.
I mean, quickly, I also think that in as much as we are here criticizing the American dream, a lot of people still clamor for it.
Yeah.
A lot of people still want it. And these people, majority, a good chunk of them, are our own people. It's not as if the police brutalities and all of these happenings there are unbeknownst to them. They are very much aware of it. But looking at our own situation here,
Exactly.
in Ghana, in Africa in general, as a continent, they still clamor for that sort of American
Because we have a
dream.
lot of misconceptions about this. There are people who live in this country who think that when you go to the US, for instance, you're going to get free food, even if you live on the street. That is so far from the truth.
Yeah.
And so people would struggle, go through that whole stress of going through the, what's it called, Libya route or whatever
Yeah,
it is, just to
yeah.
get to Europe,
Yeah.
and go and suffer some more.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you could have just stayed in your country and then find alternatives. I think it's also how people who have been in these areas have sold the American dreams to those of us who are down here.
Yeah.
And that's where sometimes I feel like people need to be a bit more honest about life outside of Ghana, how life is like in Europe or in the US, so people have an understanding of what it really is. Because people feel like, oh, if I go there and I go and clean some plates for 2 hours, I'm going to get so amount of money, and when I come in, but that is really not the case, because for you to even get your money, the taxes that you would have to pay, some of the things that you would have to do, it's just as being more honest with ourselves about conditions over there and conditions over here. That's it, really.
Right. I wanted to read the part where the delivery guy comes to the house, looks around and says, oh, this is a beautiful house.
Yeah.
And Inkem notes that.
And smiled, and like that smile was a smile of hope.
Yes.
that's
And he
like,
said
I hope
this
to get there
place
someday.
with, what was the phrase? She was very interesting. Something about stupid hope or
Like overblown expectations.
overblown expectations
yeah.
that would never actualize.
yeah.
Never. I can't find it there. Okay, so I can't find. Let me read something else since I can't find that one. She was pregnant when she first came to America with Obiara. The house Obiara rented and would later buy smelled fresh, like green tea, and the short driveway was thick with gravel. We lived in a lovely suburb near Philadelphia, she told her friends in Lagos on the phone. She sent them pictures of herself and Obiara near the Liberty Bell, proudly scrawled very important in American history behind the pictures, and enclosed glossy pamphlets featuring a balding Benjamin Franklin. Her neighbors on Cherrywood Lane, all white and pale-haired and lean, came over and introduced themselves, asked if she needed help with anything, getting a driver's license, a phone, a maintenance person. She did not mind that her accent, her foreignness, made her seem helpless to them. She liked them and their lives Obiara often called plastic. Yet she knew he too wanted the children to be like their neighbors, the kind of children who sniffed at food that had fallen on the desk, saying it was spoiled. In her life, her childhood, you snatched up the food, whatever it was, and ate it. All right. So, any other theme? American Dream, any other theme? Mems?
For me, I think my theme would be that of a double identity, or just trying to find yourself. And that's why I think last year I talked about how if you look at all the stories in this book, you would find a certain common theme going through all of them. For last week, we also with our main character, who was also just finding himself after he had lived in a different kind of... We are also seeing the same thing with Nkem, where she gets to the point where she realizes that the kind of person she's been thus far is not the kind of person she wants to be. And if she's going to be able to live her true self, then she needs to be able to bring her very authentic self to the table. Yeah. And not only just being a bimbo or a shadow or a doll for her husband to show off whenever he wants. So you're kept in this. It's like you're kept away in essentially what it is a prison, just a glorified prison, really, because you can't go to Nigeria whenever
She's
you want.
She's literally living in a glass house.
Yes,
literally.
And you are only brought out when
it's
like,
time to show you off.
I liked your long hair because long hair is gracious and it shows what did he even say? Something.
I will find it for you. Give me a minute. I'll find it for you. The page you're looking for.
Yeah.
Okay, so we go back all the way somewhere here. Hold on.
He had just come back.
Why did you cut your hair? Obiara asks. Don't you like it? I loved your long hair. You don't like short hair? Why did you cut it? Is it a new fashion trend in America? He laughs, taking his shirt off to get in the shower. His belly looks different, rounder and riper. She wonders how girls in their 20s can stand that blatant sign of self-indulgent middle age. She tries to remember the married men she had dated. Had they ripe bellies like Obiara? She can't recall. Suddenly, she can't remember anything. Can't remember where her life had gone. I thought you would like it, she says. Anything would look good with your lovely face, darling. But I liked your long hair better. You should grow it back. Long hair is more graceful as a big man's wife. Yes. He makes a face when he says, big man's wife.
And laughs. So essentially that's what she is. But then at this point, we see that Ekem is now moving away from being just a tool in her husband's game to now being her own person. So even when she was cutting her, and let me take you back, when she was cutting her hair, she was cutting it more to try and be like
his girlfriend.
But then when you move on, you realize that she suddenly finds her voice and she's like, we need to find a school for the kids in Lagos. She's not asking permission, she's saying. And then you realize how the husband is surprised and he starts to fumble like, okay, where? Because all throughout the story,
what's going on here?
Yeah, all throughout the story, she's just doing everything the husband says she should do. She's never herself. It looks like she hasn't found her identity as to who she's supposed to be as a wife and a mother. But now she finally realizes that this is the kind of person I want to be. I like the part where she said, I would like to live in a country or in my own house where when a houseboy is hired, I'm told.
I'm on it for you, my darling.
And that's
Let me read it. Let me read that part for you. Okay. In the shower, as she soaps his back, she says, we have to find a school for Adana and Oke in Lagos. She had not planned to say it, but it seems right. It is what she has always wanted to say. Obiara turns to stare at her. What? We are moving back at the end of the school year. We are moving back to live in Lagos. We are moving back. She speaks slowly to convince him, to convince herself as well. Obiara continues to stare at her, and she knows that he has never heard her speak up, never heard her take a stand. She wonders vaguely if that is what attracted him to her in the first place. That she deferred to him, that she let him speak for both of them. We can spend holidays here together, she says. She stresses the we. What? Why? Obiara asks. I want to know when a new houseboy is hired in my house, Nkem says. And the children need you. If that is what you want, Obiara says finally, we'll talk about it. She gently turns him around and continues to soap his back. There is nothing left to talk about. Nkem knows. It is done.
Yeah. So I think that's her just reclaiming back her power, something she has lost right from the beginning. Maybe as a result of who she was when the guy met her. Because when Obiara met her, he had lost all illusions of being with the man. She was supposed to be the one caring for her younger sisters, because she's the eldest. Yes. And she felt like she was not really accomplishing that role really well, and thought that the way out for her was to find a big man to, help her. And Obiara did just that. Took her children, her siblings to school, made sure that her family is comfortable. And maybe along the line, she lost her voice in that, because this person is giving you everything that you think you need. So let me sell myself for the comforts that will come.
And that's my question to you, Mimi. Did she ever have a voice?
I don't think she ever had a voice.
She never had a voice from the beginning of the story to the end of the story. She never had a voice.
She didn't. And she didn't, because she traded her voice for what could be for her family and for herself.
For sustenance.
Yes. The comforts that she
was
getting.
And then for comfort.
And so she got to the point where she realized that this is not enough. And I want more. And Amma, there's only so much a woman can take. You can't be quiet forever. You can't always, and even for men, you can't always be living in the shadow of somebody else. You're your own person. We are all so different. God gave everybody different, skills and abilities. And whenever you try to suppress yourself so that somebody else can be elevated, it gets to a point, it's tiring. It gets to a point where you would have to come out and also express yourself. And that's where sometimes there's friction, because Obiara, for instance, is shocked. He's not used to hearing her speak. He's not used to her taking a stance. He's not used to her having a woman who can speak for herself. And so in cases like that, that's where sometimes you begin to see the friction.
There's some kind of friction. So discovering herself would be
my theme.
Would that be a theme for you in the book?
Yes, it should be a theme. And also, I want to talk about inferiority complex.
Inferiority complex.
For me, I think in the beginning she felt that who was she, to even talk back at her husband. She wasn't in that place to question his decisions. Because, okay, let's go to America. Okay. Despite the fact that...
Even the proposal, she wrote that he was doing too much by proposing to her and asking her.
Yeah.
All he had to do was to tell her
she would have done
that let's go and get married, and she should have gone ahead and gotten married.
And at a point in time, she even felt, from what I read, at a point in time, she even felt that, okay, having a girlfriend was what rich men did to actually show off their wealth, that I'm rich, I'm a rich man, so it is okay for me to have a girlfriend.
And she was just trying to make excuses, but she didn't.
And she was so quiet about all of these things. The only person that in the end she could confide in was Amaechi. I want to believe I've gotten her name right. Was Amaechi. And from that conversation, that particular conversation took that friendship to another level for me. For the very fact that Amaechi was like a friend to her, despite being her house help. The fact that she had no other person else there in America to be friends with them. So that social status, that class thing there was taken away. But to have actually had a conversation about your husband's infidelity with your house help, and the response actually from Amaechi to, I think it actually dawned on her.
It was a moment.
Yes, it was a moment that actually, so I'm like, oh, okay.
Interestingly, I hold a different opinion.
You do?
We'll come to that. Actually, no, let's go there right now. What's your opinion?
I feel like this is pure gaslighting. I can't fail to see how this is not gaslight. Like, you separate the person from every person she can have a conversation with. Put her in this house where she's uncomfortable, where she's nobody to speak to, and is forced to speak to her house help. Yeah. She couldn't talk about this to anybody. She didn't even have any friends. Yeah. And that for me is pure signs of her being gaslighted, because you always try to eliminate all the possible avenues she can have to maybe speak to people, to get advice, to get different opinions of what you have set out for her. And that's the situation that she was in, because she had nobody to speak to. Yeah. Right. The only person she had was her kids. Her kids who would not understand this, and the house help. So that was her only option. Right. And she had gotten to the point where she needed, she's somebody talking to herself, so she doesn't feel like she's going crazy.
I also personally think that friendship between she and her house help, to me, it created a sense of equality for me, like that, despite she being a house help, and then she being Inkem being the madam, the oga. That sense of equality for me was created.
But let's look at it this way.
That's why I think in my earlier submission I was saying that for the only person who, in my estimation, had enjoyed the American dream was what's her name?
Amaechi.
Really, because she was the one who came from nothing. And then suddenly it's now
So
at hand.
here's my thing.
Perhaps one of the positives from the American dream, if you ask me.
Oh,
It's what
hold on
elevates
with
your
your
point.
dream. Hold on with your dream. Here's my thing. My thing about that relationship, and perhaps it's something that for me was instructive. I think that it's not for nothing that Chimamanda and Ngozi Adichie brings it up. Is the fact that they have the same upbringing, they have the same background, they are the same.
Yeah.
Had she lived and stayed back home, that could have easily been her friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's easy to be friends that way.
Yeah.
They have common, they understand each other.
Yeah.
It would have been different if the madam were of a social status, then they couldn't relate.
Yeah.
That would make it difficult for friendship.
Yeah.
Because the kind of things Amaechi would say would sound so stupid and strange and alien.
Even
to
about
her.
the yam. The
And she
fact that
couldn't
her mother-
identify.
Yeah.
So that friendship, for me, it's not wonderful. It's not out of the ordinary. It's
Born out of circumstances, we are there. We might as well make the best out of it. I think.
Yeah.
so only because I'm a movie enthusiast, right? There have been countless movies that we've watched where, let's even use my favorite fairy tales and all these things, where a poor girl is thrown into a palace. You know, I know. A poor girl is thrown into a palace because of love with the prince and all of that. And because of her social status, she goes into the palace and befriends the maid. That is it, because that's what she can identify with. So those kind of friendships are not wonderful for me because there's a baseline understanding and commonality. Exactly. What would have been strange to me would have been Inkem refusing to be friends with Amaechi.
Yes.
That would have been
yeah, she's really
that
gotten
would,
some superior
yes,
airs.
that would have been strange to be like, oh, madam, calm down and be yourself,
Yeah.
right? So anyway, but my theme from this book is infidelity, and it's beautiful to me, the poetic justice that Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie weaves so beautifully. Oh my goodness, the colors are so bright. You went around sleeping with people's husbands as a young girl.
Yeah.
And it's messed up.
Yeah.
Now you're married.
That's like karma.
Young girls are sleeping with your husband, and you are going mad. Madam.
That's karma.
When she was doing it, she didn't think
Madam.
it would be done to her.
Or perhaps she was ignorant.
Ignorance
It's
of
not a
what?
matter of, I think it's always us hoping that, oh, I'm young. I made mistakes when I was young, but then
Yeah.
when I grow up, I'll be so different, and my husband will never
Yeah.
do this to me. People usually forget that there's, like you're saying, there's something called karma.
Yeah.
And whatever it is you met out to people, some way, somehow will definitely be meted out to you. So you need to be careful.
Listen,
how
the
you-
minute we got to the point where she was with married man number one, married man number
Number
two,
two.
the one who ruled her father's
Yeah, no,
house,
it's
was-
the one
it
I said, madam,
It was
sit
a
down
habit.
quietly.
Yeah.
I lost any semblance of
Pity.
Pity or empathy for her.
I was
Yeah.
done. I was like, no, keep quiet. Then your emotions shouldn't be this one. It should be another type of emotion.
Like what?
Because she was
Acceptance.
really going through it. And I was with
No,
her.
she was going
I was
through
with
it
her. I was
because-
like, oh my goodness.
No, but how
I
much
was
she didn't
feeling it for her.
expect it. Look,
How can you not expect it? You see, because, and let's have this frank conversation. I feel as though we all agree that in this era, we give the men room to operate. We give them a blank check and they sign it as they want, and everybody accepts that it's okay for the man to cheat, and he's cheating and going away and all of that. But oftentimes, we refuse to look at our own roles in what's happening.
Yeah.
If as a young girl, you're comfortable having relationships with married men, how are you suddenly uncomfortable with it when you become a married woman?
Yeah.
Because she's a married man.
Do you understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
She's not the side now.
Yeah.
She's not the main
The
person.
main
And the
person.
moment you're the main person, it's different. I would like to think. I've wondered about this myself too many times, how people who go like, oh, when I was younger, I used to do this and I did that, and now that I'm older and I don't want it to be done to me. I wonder what the thought process is like. Maybe it's also a system. Maybe it's also us trying to convince ourselves that, okay, behold, all things are new.
Yeah.
Are gone. Sorry, old things are gone. New things are new. So I'm a new person now. I'll try and doing everything I need to do for my husband. I'm doing all the cooking, all the bending, all the everything, in the hopes that it will keep him.
All the waxing.
And then people sometimes also feel like, because I remember there was this one time somebody I know who had previously had a relationship with somebody who was married, tell us about how she feels like her husband can never cheat on her.
Wow.
Because she knows everything she needs to know about how married men behave. And she would take that into her marriage. And her husband would never... Turned out the husband had even been cheating long time ago before she even... By the time she almost went mad.
Right.
Because she wasn't expecting it. She thought she knew everything.
She thought she had insulated herself
in the book. But then it wasn't that. There are some people also who I'm beginning to realize sometimes do not really... I don't want to say do not have a choice. But yes, do not have a choice. It's not like they really want to do it. They're in a position where they need to live. And sometimes the only way out for them is finding somebody who would sponsor them.
Right.
And then you also need to find a way to pay for the sponsorship.
Right.
And sometimes the only way to pay for the sponsorships is to do some of these things.
Yeah.
I'm becoming very, very cautious about how I criticize.
Okay, so here's what. It is not a criticism of you deciding to sleep with married men.
Yeah.
It is a criticism of you suddenly having a moral conscience when it is done to you. That's my.
It's more of a moral.
That's my thing. I think it's
more of a case of he loves him. She loves him.
No.
Yeah.
I feel that if you decide to eat your cake, eat it.
You can't eat
You
your
understand?
cake
You can't
and
eat
have
your
it.
cake and have it.
Yeah.
You understand? It's a choice you make.
Yeah, but also...
So when it happens to you, look back, feel for that young girl how you felt when you were doing that. Don't suddenly lose empathy for yourself and your circumstances.
So I don't think...
if you did it
to do in this situation.
So in this situation, I would have expected her to look back on herself when she was sleeping around with married men and told herself, I'm doing this for sustenance.
I think she did.
And then think about the girls that are sleeping with their husband and think of them as also doing it for sustenance.
And be okay
and
with
keep
it.
quiet.
No.
Oh, what are people saying?
No.
She was now calling the husband's house, trying to find the girl, being possessive. She can't think about
emotions.
She can't think about. So that when you were sleeping with somebody's husband, that wife, she didn't have emotions.
No, you don't understand.
So I think she made the point beautifully about how she was trying to please the man, okay, and how most of these ladies, young girls who sleep with married men, like I don't know if she's your friend.
Yeah, she's still my friend.
Well, your friend did, and then she
this.
felt that now she knew all the tricks and everything, so she was going to inculcate that in her marriage. So I think she also tried to do the same thing in this particular marriage,
Right.
by keeping her hair whatever to please the man,
doing
by
the waxing,
by
all
waxing
her shower tricks. Remember her shower
in a
tricks?
particular way. So when
Remember her
that
shower
didn't
tricks?
work, so when that didn't work, she was like, nah. I mean,
The rod that was used to beat Techi.
he's still cheating.
It is lying down.
I need
It is
to
lying
confess
down.
this.
It will be used to
The
beat
difference
Abba.
here is, for her when she was younger, I doubt she was emotionally as invested in it. I think that's where sometimes the issues come in, where people suddenly start to go haywire. It's because and the moment emotions come in, Charlie, you lose sight of everything.
Yeah.
This one, she's heavily invested in this. The other one, she knew the reason why she was doing it. She wasn't doing it because she loved them. She wasn't doing it because she cared about them. In this case, she genuinely likes this person, loves this person, cares about this person, and expects that the same should be given back to her. And so she feels cheated because honestly, if I'm doing all of these things,
I
you shouldn't pay me back
understand
this way.
Mems.
But you don't also expect her to behave the way you're expecting her to behave, purely on the fact that we're human.
No. I
Charlie,
think that some principles should
stay.
A human being should live by principles. Without principles, there'll be total chaos.
True.
You know, you can't do something to somebody and expect that for you, the same
When is
shouldn't be
that
done
to
to
you?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
You know, so if you were comfortable sleeping with people's husbands, I am in no way equipped to judge at all. But then I can judge you if you suddenly become a moral police and start questioning why somebody's sleeping with your husband. If the principle is that sleeping with husbands is okay, let's keep it going throughout, your husband included. Let's keep it. Just what I'm saying. If your principle in life is that sleeping with husbands is okay, it's a fine thing to do for whatever reason under the sun, then please bear in mind to keep that principle going for the rest of your life. You don't change principles because
Your
suddenly
circumstances have changed.
you are now the wife and no. So at that point, I just didn't have any sympathy for her.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I was angry on her behalf. I was ready to come and sit here and talk about what a nonsense husband the husband is and all of that for all the pain she was putting her through and all of that. But the minute I got to a point, I realized that, oh, she herself was a career side chick. Then I was like, okay, well,
Yeah, but it still doesn't negate the
Madam.
fact that the husband is also not correct.
Yeah.
But we enable them.
She did enable. There's some
Yes,
form
we
of
enable that
in-
activity,
Yes.
all of us, by accepting it, by partaking in it, by having conversations like the ones that Marichi had with her. All of us are part. We are all to blame.
Yeah.
We are all to blame, yes, but it does not negate it. I think it's important for us to see people need to be accepting of their own, their own contributions and stuff like this. The man had his own, the woman had his own. We are all, contributing to this life of, and frankly speaking, it's very cyclical because we keep doing it over and over again.
Yeah.
It's not just happening to one person. It's happening to everybody. And you wonder, okay, so what? And women usually okay, can we just also talk about this hair? Sorry, I'm changing this. This hair friend, because she's the worst person.
Oh, so friendship, the theme of friendship taken away.
I
Theme
don't
of
think there's
friendship.
any theme of, well, there's a theme of friendship with her and... but
Amaechi.
her friend is the worst kind of friend. I don't think I want to have a friend like that who will come gloating to me about something that would hurt me. At least be a bit circumspect about how you relay the information. But the way you keep on, and for all she probably didn't even see the guy. I saw her riding one of her cars in town. She's moved to your. Why do I need all of that information? What are you trying to prove?
She wanted to be detailed.
That one. What are you trying to... Sometimes we need to be very careful of the kind of friends that we have. If you have any friend who is coming to give such information to you and is gloating the way this you need to assess that friendship. The person doesn't really care about you. It felt more like she's trying to even a score. Like she's trying to tell you that we know biasa, or that, you too, your husband is doing some. So like your husband is not all special, or your marriage is not as special as you think it is. Because there are so many ways you could have relayed this information. Or better still, even just shut up and allow her to find out for herself.
Right.
Than doing it the way she did
I
it.
want to help you by reading it out for
Please
you.
do.
Okay, so Income is staring at the bulging, slanted eyes of the Benin marks on the living room mantle as she learns about her husband's girlfriend. She's really young, 21 or so. Her friend, Ijemamaka, is saying on the phone. Her hair is short and curly. Those small, tight curls. Not a relaxer, a texturizer, I think. I hear young people like texturizers now. I wouldn't tell you, Sha. I know men and their ways. But I heard she has moved into your house. This is what happens when you marry a rich man. Ijemaka pauses and Inkem hears her sucking her breath. A deliberate, exaggerated sound. I mean, Obiara is a good man, of course. Ijemaka continues. But to bring his girlfriend into your house, no respect. She drives his cars all over Lagos. I saw her myself on Awolowo Road driving the Magster. Thank you for telling me, Inkem says. She imagines the way Ijemaka's mouth scrunches up like a sucked until limp orange, a mouth wearied from talk. I had to tell you, what are friends for? What else could I do? Ijemaka says, and Inkem wonders if it is glee, that highness in it, Ijemaka's tone, that reflection in do. For the next 15 minutes, Ijemaka talks about her visit to Nigeria, how prices have risen since the last time she was back. Even Gary is so expensive now, how so many children hawk in traffic holders, how erosion has eaten away chunks of the major road to her hometown in Delta State. Income clocks and signs loudly at appropriate times. She does not remind Ijemamaka that she too was back in Nigeria some months ago at Christmas. She does not tell Ijemamaka that her fingers feel numb, that she wishes Ijemaka had not called. Finally, she hangs up. She promises to call back and bring the children. Goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
I love her reaction to the lady as well, because I think she was baiting her. And if you're not careful, you also join in the conversation.
Right.
End up saying stuff you possibly should not be saying.
Right.
You probably should not be
Right.
saying. And she will take it, because she's clearly a gossip. And she would take it as, hey, when I spoke to her, she said A, B, C, D.
Yes.
And then it just keeps on going. It just keeps on going. So I love the fact that she was very composed on the phone and kept quiet and then decided to do her introspection with herself as opposed to doing it on the phone. And I'm still stressing. If you have a friend who does this to you, you need to assess whatever friendship it is you have with that person. Because this is definitely not a good friend. To say that she's envious of the marriage you have, because I mean, look at some of the ways she's, all big men are this, or she's a rich man. Possibly does not have a rich man, or possibly is having a marriage that's...
This is what happens when you marry a rich man.
Yeah.
So also, and I also detect a bit of projection. Feels like she's also projecting her own marriage
issues.
So it's like, let's all be
on this at par.
Which is really crazy. We need to be very careful of the kind of friends that we have and how the kind of information we also share with our friends, because some of the stuff that we share with our friends, you might think the person is your friend, or this is my closest friend. Next thing you know, and then you're like, but how did this also get outside? Because you feel like, oh, I've told this person this thing in confidence, and you don't expect the person to take it out. But then the next thing you know, it is outside, and people are ridiculing you.
My biggest fear when it comes to friendships is I don't know if I should call it advice or that, you know, because at your weakest or when you are most vulnerable, that's when people can get you.
It's like giving you all sorts of advice.
And that's the worst that can happen to you, because in that moment you are vulnerable, you are not thinking straight, you know, you need to make a decision, and people can deliberately give you bad advice. Deliberately give you bad advice for whatever reason, to be on the same level as you, to smash that thing they think you have up them, you know,
your downfall,
to able to laugh at you.
Because they're just evil.
I have a friend who tells me that when she was ready to do her master's, she had a conversation with another friend of hers, you know, about having him, and the friend said, "Oh no, but your child is too young. How do you do this? This is not the time for that. Listen, I know that as women we are supposed to progress, and I understand that. But you are a mother, and you need to take that." So did not do her masters. Come to find out the next year, that friend is doing her masters.
And she had the baby.
So the only reason why she was telling her not to do her masters was because she would have had one up here.
Okay, I think another theme that we also ought to talk about is male chauvinism. In this.
Oh, you have nothing to say about friendship? Then we move on to chauvinism. No, okay, I take my answer. Let's go to chauvinism.
I mean, I side with you people. I mean, even the Bible tells us that bad friendship corrupts good morals. So if it is important to watch the kinds of people you actually associate yourself with. So if the person gives you bad advice, like you said, it is when you are at your lowest ebb that you are most vulnerable. So if at that moment the person gives you bad advice and then you make do with that bad advice, it is your doom.
You are in trouble.
You are in trouble. So I mean, that's all I
think there are often signs, and
I was
you
just
can
about
tell.
to say that. Recently, I was having a conversation with our mutual friend who said something that has stuck with me. The person said, if you show me who you are the first time, I'll believe you.
I believe you, yes.
So sometimes
that's my saying too.
We sit in the company of people who talk about other people, for instance. But then you think like, she'll never do. Who the hell, who do you think you are? That she will not do the same thing to you. If she's talking about somebody else to you, you should definitely know that she will possibly do the same thing when it is your turn. That she will quickly put you under the rag for no reason at all. Sometimes it's just for conversation. So it feels like she's a minister of information and she's the one who knows everything. So sometimes watch how your friends also relate with other friends. That would give you a clue about how this kind of person really is. Because in as much as we have individual relationships with individual people, there's also a bit of commonality. If this person is talking about this person to this person, if this person is being disrespectful to this person, know that the time will come.
It's only a matter of time.
It will get to
It's only a matter of time.
Who talks to you about other people talks to others
about you. Personally, the strongest indication for me in friendship about envy, you know, it's just what people say. Classic example. People that like to sort of bring up an unpleasant past, or an unpleasant occurrence in your life, at the slightest opportunity, watch out for them.
Yeah.
Watch out for them. So we had dinner one evening, and a friend, quickly reminds everybody about pimples that used to be on somebody's face.
Please.
And I'm thinking, wait, what? Unprovoked, suddenly goes like, oh, your face has really cleared up. What happened to all your pimples? And she's like, what pimples? Like, oh, don't you remember I used to have such horrible skin? When? Oh, don't you remember? Then she talks about some 7 years or 8 years ago. I'm like, really? Red flag. Ting, 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 today. And these are the small, small signs that we all have to, like, consciously and consistently look out for.
Yeah.
People that are quick to remind you of your past, of your unpleasant circumstance. Watch out for them. That's envy, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Some of the when they're describing some of the
Yeah, overripe embellishments.
Oh, you didn't see her 7 years ago. She couldn't even afford a slipper.
Yeah.
She feels like this because she's done.
No, she won't say she feels like, hey, nowadays God has done well for her. She's doing so well. Liar. Liar. Okay, so male chauvinism, take it away, bless.
Yeah, so I think there's a clear case, there's a clear picture of male chauvinism in Imitation. The fact that Biora, I mean, from one of the conversations with Nkem, when he realized that, you know, she has actually cut her hair, it's like, why have you cut your hair? I mean, so at that material moment, she didn't think that, or he didn't think that Nkem should have an independent wish of herself. Like, I mean, okay, I want to look this particular way. Why should you look this way? Maybe you only want to look this way if it is a trend. But why would you want to? I like this. I like that. I like this. I like this. This is what I want my wife to look like. Why would you want to look like this? So, I mean, that was a clear case of male chauvinism. And he wanted to do things without being questioned. I'm a man, so I can cheat. I can have girlfriends. I can't be questioned about it.
I can change the houseboy.
Yes, I can change the houseboy. I can't consult you on taking, decisions, no matter how big or no matter how small. Your opinion doesn't count. After all, you are in America. You are living in a big house. You have a house all to yourself. Whatever you need, I provide. What else do you want? And that is like the mentality of a lot of men.
Say it. Bring it home.
A lot of men. I mean, I think about 95%.
And we are there.
We are okay. We are okay. We are okay. Then you now okay. Me yes, ma. What do you want again? So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's no chauvinism.
Yeah.
I think sometimes as partners, we need to take time to understand what it is our partners or our spouses want. Because, as you're saying, she lives in America. Nobody involved her in this decision making and said, would you like to live in America? Would you like to have your kids in America? Would you like to stay? It was just, you're staying, you're doing this, I've left.
So as in this partnership called marriage,
where is the partnership?
Where does your dream end and where does mine begin?
Yeah. And sometimes you need to be careful of that because I've seen so many people just let go of their own dreams and their own wishes because for the sake of, and it's usually women who do this.
It's always women.
For the sake of peace. And old women, sorry to say this, old women, huge enablers of injustices against women.
Yeah.
Will tell you, oh, so that's Nenakuma better and then marriages are like that.
Husband's peace.
Yeah.
Be your husband's peace.
But who is being my peace?
And nobody cares about your peace.
That's why I have an issue with some of these things. So at least consult the person.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I would want us to live in the US. I would want the kids. What do you think? And maybe she can also say, oh, this and this and this and this is my reason why. But for you to be total Lord and Savior of
so motor decision,
and we are doing this and that's fine now.
Right.
A lot of people would have an issue with it.
Right.
I always say that I love the generation, my generation of women, who are now questioning a lot of things, who are not just taking anything anyhow because a man says so.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with you trying to assert your authority as a man. But it's more, I actually find it a lot more sexier and a lot more intimate when you actually, allow the woman to also take the journey with you.
Yeah, that is sexier. That is
because there's no sense in
sexier.
you doing all of these things.
Yeah.
To what gain, really?
Yeah.
And also, the moment you continue to do that, you sort of subjugate or reduce your spouse to somebody who's not able to take decisions.
Make your spouse a child. Our time is up, unfortunately. So we can't even do characterization. We can't talk about our favorite characters and our least favorite characters.
I don't have a favorite character in this.
I don't have a favorite character in this one either. Do you have a favorite character?
I want to be as rich as Obiora. That's all.
So you can take your wife away.
So that you can go and dump your wife somewhere and be going for short, tight curled,
I just want his riches. That's
21-year-olds. We see you, Bless. We see you.
I do have a least favorite character though, and that's definitely her friend.
Okay, for you. For me, the main character herself in Kemp, she's my
your
least favorite character. Yes.
Right.
I don't like that kind of a woman. She's not my kind of woman.
Yeah.
Yes, but at the end of the day, at least you see some growth. She's growing. She's best in it.
Yeah.
Not my kind of woman. She doesn't have a voice. She can't. She's just an imitation of a human being.
Yeah. Just there.
Just there. And on top of that, sleeping people's husbands. No, not
That
my
was in
kind
the
of
past.
not my kind of woman. It's been amazing as always with you. Always. Did you enjoy the book? I did.
Yeah, I did.
I did. You did?
Can we now afford to move on?
I would say
I'm saying this publicly so that you are forced to move on from this book to more exciting books.
But we are not done with the book.
But I think there are lots of books.
There are lots of stories in the book
Let's
that
do
we
the
love.
last one and then we've closed
No, we disagree. Our time is up. I see people coming into the studio to sack us. Thank you, Bless. Always a pleasure. Thank you, Mims.
You're welcome.
Always fabulous with you. Thank you for joining us. We all enjoyed thoroughly the thing around your neck. Go grab it.
Which we are replacing.
Which we would come back to next week. Have a lovely evening. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Hello, information.
Madam,
Me, I have still not got the money for that list of expensive building materials you sent to me. The price of the iron rods have been increased too much, had I?
madam, relax. Look, that's not why I didn't call. I just visited IPCP, where the engineers told me everything about Trasacco fast floor.
Trawanko, please, those people are expensive. Are they not the people building those big houses in town? I beg going to cash in a guy.
Madam, in fact, I used to think the same until I visited their office today, and they gave me an estimate of how much it will cost. No more, the estimate is free. It's cheaper than the one I even sent you.
Wow.
Building contractors, foremen, masons. Visit IPCP, the Trasacco Fast Floor. Engineers will assist you build an affordable, faster and stronger building.
Oh, madam, it is done.
Wow.
Trasacco Fast Floor. Stronger, faster and affordable.
This is a Trasacco construction product.
Welcome to Ridge Royal Hotel. In the recent light of pandemic, we are taking utmost care to ensure the safety of our guests. We have to change with the times, and the hotel industry is used to change.